Hi everybody, this is Michael Hildebrand and I'm your host on the Sleeptrust podcast, where I'm talking about how to gain back trust in your ability to have a superb sleep again. In this week's episode, we are going to talk about sweet dreams. And the sweet dreams you're going to hear a little bit about are my personal dreams, but they're not going to get too sweet, so no explicit content on this podcast. But this is basically what I want to do today, share my opinion, my personal opinion about dreams, share one or two dreams with you and the impact that they had on my life, and maybe inspire you to have a deeper look at dreams you can remember. And as dreams are such a fundamental thing when it comes to sleeping, I'm quite sure that we'll have a couple of podcasts. And when I just do a little brainstorm, I could see something about cultural aspects when it comes to dreaming. There are also psychologists like Mr. Jung and Mr. Freud who have their opinions on dreams. We can talk about sleep stages, dig in a little bit deeper into the REM sleep stage where we dream most. And so on. So let's see how where this route takes us together. When I think about dreaming, this is kind of an internal entertainment system. This is basically what it's for me. So if you are familiar with Star Trek, there are these things called the holodecks. And these are basically rooms which are hooked up to a computer, and you tell the computer what experience you want to have, and as soon as you enter this room, the computer will set up everything visually and put everything in place that you really think you're in this environment, the dialogues and everything around you. The good thing about this entertainment system is that it's absolutely safe. So if we look at how we actually learn things, it's basically through trial and error. So in the outside world, I would have to test something, and that's not always so good as it can hurt us. So depending on which action you take, you can seriously get hurt. And in dreams, this is obviously not the case. So you could test things in terms of relationships. And of course, if I say you could test them, your brain will basically come up with the environment or the situation that's best for you and hook up some kind of a wired dream around that. And in the end, it doesn't matter if you really experienced this or if you had a dream or even if you visualize certain aspects of your life. In the result, your brain will gain experience. And this is just kind of how things happen. But leaving that aside, dreaming is just a super entertaining experience for me. I always love dreaming. I am really thankful that there is something like dreaming. It's not a waste of time, in my opinion. I think actually that many dreams are just there to entertain me. So I think about dreams where I fly around, jump around, have some kind of an action going on, or other stuff that's just really fun stuff. So it's not all about fears, it's all about your whole life. And I think it's just a super cool experience. But dreams can and do have a deeper impact. I kind of utilize dreaming when it comes to work. So if I, let's say, had a presentation which would be really important for me, I would obviously be practicing that presentation, preparing for it, getting a couple of slides or my text in place. And then I would practice it in kind of a dry run. And I do so by really doing a dry run or by visualizing this presentation in my head. And I go on and do it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, depending on how good that fit is for me. And I do it right before I go to sleep. So I do it over daytimes too. It's not as if I wait until I go to sleep to start practicing. That's not the case. I do it daytimes, but I would do my last training right before I go to sleep and get my head really involved with this particular thing I want the solution And the solution would be to have a great presentation, seeing everybody enjoying the presentation, getting the information around. So when I go to bed and doing this practice, let's say half an hour intense practice before I go to bed, and go to bed right afterwards, no TV, nothing put between that and me going to bed, I will experience my brain just continuing doing the training for me when I go to sleep. And often the result is just fantastic. When I get up that next morning and, let's say after breakfast or anything, I would go on to have a final practice, and things would just work so perfectly well, because overnight things settle, go into your longer term kind of experience. But you also kind of work through these things at night too, if you're really kind of behind the problem. So that's the thing that I utilize from time to time. I would not recommend doing so every day or every week, but from time to time that's really helpful to peak perform. And of course, things come up on their own if you push them aside or just don't give them attention, and you somehow in your inner you knows that you should give certain things, feelings, relationships, you name it, attention. And when you dream, they just pop up on their own. It doesn't have to be a direct relationship. You're not always able to kind of see the situation, but as our brain works with pictures and feelings and everything around that, you will be able to find out what your brain wants to tell you and what you experience. You just would have to sit down and take a little bit of time to dig into that feeling. So let me share one, or better even two, dreams with you and tell you the impact that they had on my life. The first dream I had is actually kind of a nightmare, and I'm not sure if I told you, I answer questions on this platform, Quora, from time to time. And Quora is basically a platform where people can put in questions, and I answer a kind of sleep-related questions on there. So one guy or lady put in a question asking about recurring nightmares. And I thought of nightmares. I had to look back quite a while, because I do not really have nightmares. I've had nightmares the last couple of years, which is good. I don't really need them. But I had one, must be 20 years ago, that was really recurring over, I would say, a period of probably 1 to 2 years. And I had that dream at least 10 times. So it's still vivid to me when I look back now. I can remember what happened. It's not as if, I get really hooked up to the emotions I had there anymore. But basically, I was running through an environment where sight was very, very narrowed down. So I could hardly see anything. It was kind of foggy. And there was a feeling of danger, somewhere. I couldn't really locate where the danger was coming from. And it was just this kind of a really bad feeling. And I was trying to get some kind of sight, putting my eyes to the extreme corners and pulling my head up and down and trying to get sight somewhere. And I tried to get one step before the other, faster and faster. But the harder I tried to accelerate here, the slower it got. So the more work I put in there, the harder it got and the slower I actually got. And this was a really, really evil feeling for me in that dream. I can still remember it. So at that time, I did not sit down and reflect what that dream might tell me. But I'll share with you my insight in just a minute or two. After, I will dig into a good dream I had, and someone threw that Quora question. I put those two of them into a relationship, and I'll share that with you, because I knew I maybe wouldn't have seen that if I would not have been producing this podcast right now and putting that into a relationship. So the second dream I had went kind of like this. I was standing in quite beautiful environment. It was not really super exciting. It was kind of a, boring kind of a field environment, but it was okay, and the weather was great. I was feeling good, and somehow I grasped the feeling that I was dreaming. So something in my inner me told me that I'm actually dreaming, and I can still remember that. I thought, okay, this is great, because if I'm actually dreaming, I'm the creator of this world. And this means, as it's a dream, I can just do anything. And the first thing I did to prove that I was really dreaming was to create a tree. So I thought of this tree, and with the snip of my finger, that tree was there. A big, wonderful, beautiful tree. I think after that, I did a little bit of crazy stuff, letting that tree get, alive, talking with me, and jumping around like some kind of a Harry Potter magician, and it was just fantastic. So that was the flip side. And by the way, I tried to Google the opposite of nightmare, and you won't believe it, there is no opposite of nightmare. So maybe it's time for the Sleeptrust community to come up with some kind of a cool name for dreams that are just in our favor. That basically, I would have chosen that name for the podcast, but as there was nothing there, I took Sweet Dreams, which seems to be quite fair. Okay, so how do these two dreams fit together for me? Well, basically, I had the dreams at a similar time, and as soon as I had the positive one, me being the creator in this dreamy kind of world, the first dream stopped. And looking at it from today's perspective, everything seems so clear, because I was working, I had a new job, it was really exhausting at times, as you can imagine. There was quite a lot of pressure on me, and I was working my way through, and I like to deliver in high quality, so I was doing my best. But the harder I was working and the better I was performing, the more work I got. And this was kind of making it worse and worse for me. Where does this second dream fit into there? Somehow it gave me this deep inner feeling that I'm the creator of my own world. So whatever happens in the outside, this does not have to do anything with me. I can choose what I want to do, what I'm good at, what's fun for me, what I'm not so good at, what I hate, and what I don't want to do. And with this feeling, somehow my inner holding changed. So I could say, no, I'm not going to do that. It's too much work. I'm not going to do that. That's not my scope. Of course, being constructive, always offering a solution. But I did not have the feeling that I would have to do so to be a good performer or to deliver good work. And this was kind of a milestone for me and really changed my whole future, looking at it from the nowadays perspective. Maybe I would not even have had needed the second dream if I would have sat down and thought about the first dream I had, the nightmare. What did it want to tell me? Maybe I would have gotten a conscious solution. But as you see, things are somewhere in there, and at some time we're going to have a dream. And in the best case, the solution is there and you don't have to take care anymore. So that's my view, sharing dreams, sharing what impact those two dreams had on me. I hope you love dreaming as much as I do, and if you have a dream that you think is worthy, you can remember, you've got the feelings, just take a while and think about that dream. Does it want to say something to you? Is there some kind of a solution wrapped into that you can maybe accelerate through conscious acting? Unconsciously, it's going to be processed anyway, but through conscious acting, you may be able to just accelerate the process. Or is there something that is just so desirable for you? Are there wishes that you should now start to create your own future? Enjoy dreaming. That's the point. Enjoy it. Take value out of it, but don't pressure it. Just enjoy dreaming. It's just such a fantastic built-in entertainment system. And after having a hard day, it's always great to get a rest, to gain our sleep trust, to have sleep. And if we have a nice dream that we can remember, isn't that the best that can happen to us? With that, we're going to bring this episode to a landing. How could we wrap up this? The basic message is that dreams are just fantastic. Dreaming, sleeping is fantastic to experience things that you would not be able to experience in the outside without possibly getting hurt. It's also kind of a learning experience underneath that, which can be sometimes consciously triggered through, following exercises until you go to sleep. But it can also be unconsciously when things just boil up, emotions or other things that are under the hood. So I think it's very valuable to listen to your dreams. Maybe you want to even start writing a dream diary when you can remember. I'm just thinking of giving you a cheat sheet to do so, giving you some kind of a structure to write down your dream. And every second time I put one of these podcasts, it leaves me with a little bit of work, but I'm really happy to do so. So I'm going to create a dream diary sheet for you. You can download it at sleeptrust.eu to note down your dreams and maybe even conclusions, what that can mean for you. Of course, it's a very personal thing. Trust in your intuition. Nobody can tell you what your dream means except of you. So trust your intuition and enjoy dreaming. In next week's episode, I'm not quite sure what we'll do exactly. We will definitely talk about dreaming. Maybe we'll dig into what Mr. Freud, Mr. Jung think about it. Maybe we'll have the cultural aspect, something else. I'll decide this spontaneously next week. And I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Sleep Trust podcast and that you tune in next week when we're going to talk about dreaming one or the other way. And until then, have a superb sleep. Hey there, and thanks for listening to the Sleep Trust podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want to get further information on this podcast or material that will help you to gain back your sleep trust, please check out sleeptrust.eu. That's sleeptrust.eu, where you will get lots of information around sleep. And here comes some legal stuff. Everything on this podcast is my opinion only, so do not take it as an advice, as I am not a doctor, nor have I considered your personal situation. If you feel that you need medical advice, please consider getting an appointment at your doctor of trust. If you want to give me any kind of feedback on this podcast, feel free to email me at podcast@sleeptrust.eu. I hope you tune in again next week, and until then, have a good sleep.